Three, two, one. Oh, hi Neil. How you doing?
Hi Adam, nice to see you.
Yeah, no, you too. You too. It's good to have you on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Ah, it's good. Yeah. So you do life coaching now. What kind of like brought you into that?
So I came to coaching kind of late. It's been the last couple of years really. It kind of happened as a result of two separate events. One was me and my partner. We were driving on he was driving on the M4 corridor, and I was in the passenger seat. And it was a day where there'd been flood warnings given out, and all of a sudden the wheel locked, and we found ourselves aqua gliding across three lanes of the motorway, listening to a really long description on an audio book as well about someone being killed, and it seemed to go on forever and ever and ever. So we've got an immensely good book, by the way. Just
Yeah.
just like that particular passage seemed to be going on for a long time. So to the background of this guy getting stabbed time and time again was us sort of nearly, the car was shaking, it was spinning. I don't know how we didn't collide with anything. The car was totaled on the barrier at the other side, and we came out of it completely unscathed. Even my laptop was perfectly fine. In fact, I totaled that myself 3 weeks ago when I poured a cup of tea into it. So it survived that, but not a cup of tea. So I kind of came out of that, and I thought I'd been in a profession for 25 years up to that point, and it hadn't really, I knew it wasn't sitting quite right. And I'd been diagnosed with a condition called fibromyalgia about 2 years previous to that. So my physical health is really, really quite compromised, and it kind of affects the brain as well. So it felt like a bit of a wake-up call. I felt that if I was lucky enough to, however you want to see it, I'm a mindfulness practitioner, so I kind of see it in terms of the universe giving me something back. But it's like old CDs where I used to get bonus tracks. If I sort of see it like that every day is a bonus day for me to be here. So I needed to make it matter. Within about a year, I'd exited the profession that I was in. And was basically started all over again. And I kind of thought what would fit with my values really, and I felt like I wanted to still do, because I had been doing something before in the public sector that was supporting people and their needs, but I felt like I wanted something different. So I heard about coaching. I found a really good provider that was also that mindfulness approach as well, in Catalyst 1.4, and did the qualification, and I've been doing that ever since. Yeah.
No, that's awesome that you're now doing something that you kind of found, like that you really enjoy, and you kind of feel like it's your calling. And
yeah,
I think it's like, well, what you said with that accident as well. It's you're lucky to be here, but it's crazy how sometimes things can happen, and then from that experience you kind of like change, and it makes you think quite deeply about your life and what your values are, isn't it? And it kind of, everything kind of for a reason in some way, isn't it?
I absolutely believe that. Not in a day-to-day sort of way, but when you just kind of pull back away from it, or get conspiracy theory about it as well. I know people who do that, the likes of just that means blah blah blah. But I do think things kind of come together. And also I was 48 or 49 when this happened, so I think that phrase midlife crisis is really interesting, because it did all happen around me being 50, but it absolutely wasn't a crisis. It was a liberation. It was a chance to really think about who I wanted to be, and reconnect with who I've been in my early 20s as well, because I got so lost along the way, So I think it was more about that, really. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Because like things just piece together, and then that event happens, and then it just, like you said, with that midlife kind of like crisis thing you mentioned as well. I mean, it's not really something you expect to happen, is it? When you're like in your 40s, I mean, let alone anyway. I mean,
Yeah, I think so. I've had my physical health, and actually my mental health has not been brilliant since I've been about 25. So, and when I was a lot younger, there were a lot of people that said to me, "Oh, it's not right that you suffer like this when you're so young," which I sort of, I mean, for some people, I'm sure that's reassuring. For me, it was just made me feel, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm not supposed to. Why are you telling me I'm not
mm,
supposed to be like this? And I think one of the good things about being having to face those kind of compromises is that younger is that by the time you get to the point where people are starting to talk about it more, I wouldn't say I got it sorted, but certainly a lot of those issues and a lot of the shock of some of those issues I was able to think about better.
mm,
So I think that's sort of a blessing, really, in a way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can kind of relate to that in some way. I mean, I won't go on too much about it, but like,
Mm.
I mentioned to you I had
Yeah.
PTSD, and I had an accident when I was like 13, 14, and that, I was quite an early age as well. And, that age, you don't really know about a lot of things to do with mental health. It's not really something that's, you think about it 13, 14. So like you said, when certain things happen, it kind of gives you that perspective. It kind of, really does change that kind of lens that you were, the way you saw things previous to that.
Yeah.
And like you said, people might say, oh yeah, it's okay, or people might downplay it or think, you're young and stuff, but it doesn't really matter, does it? What age something happens at. Like somebody said to me that there are people out there who are like, say, 20 or 30,
Mm.
and they've lived much more deeply than some people who might be in their 60s. They've just had a different experience. Just because of their age doesn't mean that they haven't had things happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. And interestingly, I've been treated for PTSD in the last couple of months.
Yeah,
CBT,
yeah. CBT, yeah.
absolutely amazing stuff. I've got to say that first of all. But I was a bit in denial about having it to start with, and it turned. This isn't from the car accident, actually. This is from too many toxic interactions within
Yeah,
my
yeah,
previous employment, and
yeah.
so actually the whole reason why we can become that traumatized or damaged as well. I find that really fascinating that
Mm,
life can do these things to us, and it's the tools to
mm,
be able to want and strive for a better quality of life for ourselves. I think that's
mm.
the really important thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think like, the things that happen, they kind of make you stronger in the long run, I think, in some way. I mean, when it's happening, I don't think I remember thinking like, why has this happened to me?
Mm,
Why me? And I used to get wound up with myself because I was like, why is this happening to me?
mm,
But then over time, you're like, okay, well, I see things like this now, and you've got that kind of resilience, haven't you, through certain things that happen. But no, I mean, I really applaud what you're doing and your coaching, and I think it's nice that you're kind of giving something back and helping other people as well through that.
yeah, and I particularly, uh, I mean, I'm doing all kinds of coaching, and that's really interesting as well. After 25 years in the public sector, kind of get into business environments and seeing how people work, and but also I do have a particular interest in wanting to help people who've experienced some of the things I have, like burnout and
Mm.
I think just not feeling okay in their own skin. So that
Yeah,
kind
yeah, yeah,
that kind of coaching is incredibly rewarding, and
yeah.
feel really
No,
lucky doing that. Yeah, yeah.
no, that's it. And I see also that you write books, like short stories you've been doing.
Well, yeah, I'm aiming. I'm aiming for the novel, but it seems to be kind of running away from me. I've got writers groups that would fully own up to you that my novel writing isn't there. I'm not really selling myself here, am I? But in the field of short stories, so last year I was lucky enough to have a short story published for the first time, and in no kind of very, very obvious plug, from the wonderful Arachne Press publication,
Awesome.
from the Solstice Shorts competition, which they hold every year. And yeah, it's a short story called Diaspora, which is sort of, I tend to write darker stuff, which might not be too much of a surprise.
It's that balance.
Could be. Also, I'm my favorite writers, my two favorite writers are both definitely writing, have written or are writing stuff about the dark side of human nature. But that one's actually more about. Well, I'm a third generation. Came from Poland, Jewish family. And I wanted to write something about how accepting Liverpool had been to my great grandparents. More as a statement, really, about the Bible.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't get into, because that's probably going to open
Yeah.
kind of worms. But I wanted to say, well, look, this is what this country can do, and I won't be here. So because if they hadn't let my family in, then come the Nazi Germany, my dad still would have been in Poland. I remember watching that scene from Schindler's List where the little girl in the red coat is going.
Yeah.
And actually, my dad would have been probably about that age, and that just made me go, whoa,
Yeah.
I would not be here. So I wanted to write something about that. So I wrote something about kind of refugees coming to Liverpool and being accepted into the city. So yeah, and I'm very happy and proud that was chosen, and just been chosen again for this year's competition as well. So which is also a more upbeat piece, actually. Maybe I need to learn something about this. Maybe my novel needs to be more upbeat. So so I'm feeling really good about the writing as well. I feel lucky to have two careers.
No, that's great, and congratulations on getting those kind of like awards and getting it out there. I think that's just like could be the start. The starting point, isn't it? It's the tip of the iceberg for like what might come in the future. So I mean, like
yeah, it's really nice as well. Arachne Press, who published them, are they're very much in line with the kind of stuff I want to write. So I feel really, really pleased that they've chosen me to be as part of that. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's nice, and it's nice that you're doing something that you enjoy, something that you're passionate about, and you're having like a positive impact. 'Cause people like to read. People like to read books, and it's imagination, isn't it, as well? Plus, like there's that history aspect of what you was talking about, and factual things.
Well, that was fascinating for me, because I'd never, even though I'd gone to a Jewish school and I'd basically been within the community until I was 18, 19, I didn't know how the history looked. So researching that and finding out what it would have been like to have been on those boats and come across, and the only story I got told was everyone got dumped in Liverpool when they thought they were going to go to New York, which is sort of funny, but not funny at the same time. But yeah, that's the only fact I knew. So researching what it would have been like, what the docks would have been like then, because of course the docks are dead now as well. After and the history of Liverpool and what that did, the death of the docks did in the 80s, which was when I was growing up. So that's another huge important issue for me. So all of that, it was really, really interesting. I've not done much research stuff before as well. So it was yeah.
So much history in Liverpool. Like my dad's side of the family all from Liverpool. Like my dad's a Scouser. My dad's mum's still in Liverpool, and my auntie is. And yeah, I've got quite a few relatives in Liverpool still.
Yeah,
I've been there a few times. It's a lot of history there.
Especially
with the football.
It really is an amazing city. Which side are you on the football club?
I have to be Liverpool. Otherwise, my dad would probably do something to me.
Same, but Everton for the same reason.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I mean, like we were talking about like mindfulness earlier, like you said, ways people can like what ways would you suggest, or what can people do to, like, help their stress levels if they're feeling stressed? Would you say like mindfulness?
I think that's a really good question, and mindfulness has been the buzzword in this, in various places for the
Yeah.
last year and a half, and a lot of it is based around changing the way the brain patterns work, and that's good. I mean that's a really positive thing, I think. But the problem is with what it doesn't do, I think, is take care of the emotions, and
Mm.
um, I think often that tends to be the approach we take in the UK. We forget about feelings and emotions, don't talk about them. Things like us mentioning PTSD, for example. I'm aware that blokes talking about that stuff is particularly is missing. We need more of that. Not that everybody needs to share everything about their lives, but you know what I mean.
Mm.
So for me, there were two teachers really who are both American, and they're both westernized, but they're both psychologists as well. And their podcast really sort of opened up a lot for me. One is Tara Brach, and the other one is Jack Cornfield with a K. And
Right.
the reason I like both of them is because, first of all, they're very, very funny people, but also they're very emotionally connected and switched on, and they talk about mindfulness in the world that we're living.
Mm.
So yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know if there's any help or not. So my challenge at the beginning of lockdown, because I decided I was going to do some on camera blogs for the company I work for, Life Coach London. So I decided I wanted to stop complaining about other people and ranting, because I am prone to a rant. I partly put that down to being a Scouser, actually, but so I decided that compassion, which is a big meditation part of kind of Tibetan mindfulness, to really push it more than I had done. And when things started exploding on social media, well, more than normal, I mean,
Yeah.
and it was like, bog roll gate, and there were all these proliferation of, what are people doing? They're mental, they're this, they're that. I was really surprised, because I think previously I would have been, what's wrong with this country? But actually, my initial response was real sadness that all we know how to try and do in a crisis here is like grasp for stuff, and
Mm.
it didn't even make sense. So I just I felt really sad. So that I think meditating for loving kindness and compassion, the amount of people who are really harsh to themselves and harsh to each other, and I think that's what practicing a lot can give you over a period of time as well. You have to be patient. Again, not one of our strongest traits
Mm.
as a country, but just be prepared to be open to saying it's okay,
Mm.
and I'm aware that makes me sound like an old hippie, and maybe I am, but but I think that's a really good starting point.
Mm.
Slowing, trying to slow the pace of life down, getting in touch with your core values about who you really are, asking yourself if you're living your life that way, not waiting until you have a car crash and you're 49 years old, and although that's okay too, as long as you survive the car crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but also just starting to love ourselves. It sounds so cringy, doesn't it, saying we need to love ourselves? People find that really hard to hear.
Mm.
And I think it needs to be okay for us to say it. So
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think, like, that lockdown kind of, like, in that kind of current situation, like when it all kind of kicked off, you see like the true colours in people and society, and like you said, we didn't really prepare for it, and people just reacted, and it was quite sad to see that sometimes, because it's people thinking about themselves and their own needs and not thinking about other people.
I think that's true. But then also I realised, and yeah, my politics doesn't matter, so I need, that's not really
Yeah.
cool. But just in terms of how I see the world, that actually we're not prepared as a society to do anything but that, because that's how we are. And so
Mm.
we can't have a new set of skills about reaching out to other people. I know there were lots of people that were saying we need to be able to do this, but my question would then be how? If the way that we're all structured is to go and look after ourselves because we need to make sure we're okay, which is a polite version of what I really
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah,
then you know how do we learn those skills? So yeah, I think that's the bit that's missing. And again, I think the compassion and the mindfulness stuff starts to open up what
mm,
what we think about that. But it's very difficult to do.
yeah, yeah.
And
The Doug, sorry.
I mean, sorry, I mean one quick example. So lockdown itself. I only got to about 2 months in when I thought, hold on, there's a whole group, a large group of people in this country who have been in lockdown or housebound for a long time. So there are people with disabilities, far more, far more. I mean, I'm housebound some of the time,
Mm,
but not most
mm,
of the time. But there's people who are living that life day in, day out, and we don't necessarily think about them.
mm,
But actually, they have the answers. If someone had actually stopped and gone, could you give us some tips about how to deal with this? What would you, what do you think as someone who's living like this? How would you suggest to do it?
mm,
I think it's stuff like that.
mm.
We're so blind to other people, we don't even know where the answers could be when they're all around us. So I don't know whether that example makes sense, but that's the one
Yeah,
that,
yeah. No,
that
it
kind
makes sense.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of, it's one that made me think, and how many other things, how many other people who've got expertise and specialism and knowledge and wisdom and kindness that we just don't think about because we don't know how to, or we just make an assumption and shut them out. We really should stop pointing fingers, I think, and just start opening our ears a little more and seeing what happens.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think like we have we have all the answers within us, don't we? And
Yeah.
where before that happened, it was kind of so caught up in life and what's happening and people finding happiness and doing certain activities and things.
Mm.
I mean, that's all well and good and great, but like at the core of it, it's within yourself, isn't it? People were seeking happiness and lots of different things externally when it's kind of within themselves. And people, like you said, in those situations who are housebound or can't do certain things, they have a way of coping, and dealing with it. So it really kind of like forced people to really look at themselves, I find, and had more
Yeah.
space to think. And I think like that's kind of one of the things with mindfulness, isn't it? It kind of like puts your attention on yourself. But yeah, with what you said with mindfulness, you might need something else alongside that to probably deal with those emotions and things that come up.
No, I think that's really true, and I think that's where some of it's gone wrong because I know I was working with a group of people on mindfulness. I'm not a trained teacher, I hasten to add, although I probably shouldn't have said that out loud. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, but somebody within the organisation kind of took me aside and showed me an article from a paper that had said quite rightly that people were bringing mindfulness into public sector spaces and then finding out that they were opening Pandora's box. Now, part of my training is as I've got a therapist background in terms of theory, but not as a therapist for groups. So I'm not a counsellor, but I have that background. And yes, lots of people while I was working with them, stuff did come up for them, and so that became part of our discussion and whether they did need to go and see someone or not. You're absolutely right. So
Mm,
it's really important that people know, and all the best books on it, I have to say, they bear that in mind. They say if you're going into this and you discover, then these are the things you should do. That's
mm,
that's very, very, very true, I think. Yeah.
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 No, that's it. And I think like with coaching as well, because like you're coaching, I've done coaching,
Mm.
and that's in some way. I mean, people were going to bring something to the plate, but when we was doing exercises and examples, people were like, talking about something, and that thing that they were talking about would then spring onto something else, and that then surface something else, and then people would be like, "Oh gosh, I wasn't expecting that."
Yeah, that thing you were saying about all those skills being inside of us, it's so true. I mean, this is a theory, and this is my opinion, so I'm not claiming any facts to this, but I sometimes find myself wondering if the pace that we're leading our lives, I mean, I don't have a choice anymore. I can't live my life at that pace, because apart from anything else, if I try, I get chronic fatigue syndrome at the other side of it, worse than I'd normally get. So it's kind of called boom and bust. So I have to avoid that completely. But if we're working at that sort of breakneck speed, and we're being encouraged to prioritize overstuffing and filling our lives and gaining, constantly getting overstimulated from lots of different avenues in terms of information and communication, then if we're going fast, then that seems to mean that I imagine we're working off adrenaline. And if we're working off adrenaline, that means our mind state is fight or flight. It's as if we're just about to be killed. That is not a reflective state of mind. Now, adrenaline's great, when it's pumped up and you're going, it's great, but it's not the best place to try and work out what you're going to do next. And I think that there's no space for that, whether it's at work or home or in between or wherever, then that creates a real societal problem, I think, for how people learn to think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think that's a good point. I think, like, as well, somebody said to me, where it goes back to like caveman times, we're kind of like wired just to worry about gathering food and hunting, and looking after family, sleep and everything. And now there's all this other stuff piled into that as well that we're not kind of designed to, have that kind of thought process around. Whereas now, that's why there's all the stress and everything, because there's just so much.
Yeah, no, I read this book by a guy called Paul Gilbert, and it kind of changed my life. And it's called The Compassionate Mind. I've always got it on my table for clients and stuff. But that's exactly what he kind of explained that really well. And the image I kind of always think of is, wake up in the morning and there might be a dinosaur in the cave mouth. So you're starting your day like that. And then I thought, that's how I felt for quite a lot of my 30s and 40s, actually, waking up in the morning. So what's that all about? So, I think there are other ways to do things, but equally trying to explain that to people who are living that way and who potentially have quite a lot of influence over your life and have expectations of you, I think that's where it becomes quite difficult. So,
No, I definitely agree. And I think, like, kind of coaching and mindfulness and, self-development is the kind of way forward to deal with things, and not prescription pills and things like that. Because it all kind of goes back to the mental side of it, because the mental side of it has an effect on the physical side, doesn't it? And emotional. It's all kind of interlinked.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the interesting thing about having something like fibromyalgia, because with that, not in a neurotic or highly strung sort of way that I need to keep micromanaging it, but I do need to keep I need to keep managing my state to get the best out of what I can do. So those elements, like you say, of stress levels and looking after myself physically and emotionally, and all of that has become something that's I've needed to be a lot more aware of without getting neurotic about it, which is a fine line. But I think there's value to that. I think you're right. I think there's value to that for lots of people. But then that's what's given me more of a sense of calm and feeling centered and at peace with myself and knowing who I am than I would have done if I'd just I'm not wishing fibro on myself, but if I'd not had the experience that I've had, I would not be as at peace as I am now, I don't think.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's I think, like, what you're doing is, like, really great, and I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And I think it's really great what you're doing with the books. And I wish you all the best in your books and your coaching and everything that you're doing, and hope things go really good for you.
Well, thank you, Adil. It's been really nice talking to you as well. So thanks for giving me a chance to just sound out and say what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. I mean, where can people find you on like social media and your
Yeah.
website? Where's
Yeah. So should I actually, maybe I should send you the links through, but yeah, there's the company I'm part of with I've got two other close team members, Jennifer Wayman and Nafisa Shehu. That's Life Coaching London Limited. I've got a writer's website as well, which you can see I know these things off by heart. I've got my own LinkedIn page. I've got two LinkedIn pages, one as a writer, one as a
yeah.
coach, both Neil Lawrence. Yeah, I'll send the details to you.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
But any feedback from anybody listening or watching about what they think, I'm really love being engaged in these kind of conversations. So feel free to pop up and ask some stuff, or just tell me what you think, even if it's just that I need a new haircut.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Looking pretty sharp.
This is my first post lockdown haircut. So
oh no, I'm probably gonna have one Saturday. I haven't had mine cut in about 5 or 6 months. So
yeah, no, it's Monday morning every time. Like, I'm doing coaching first thing in the morning a lot of the time at the moment, and I switch the camera and just go, ah!
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, it's all good. But no, I'll definitely stay in touch, and it was great talking to you, and thank you for being on.
Yeah, well, look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, no, you too. Have a great day now. Take care.
Bye bye.